And at 7:45 this morning, today is Veterans Day, and among the special ceremonies happening today, Central Georgians will honor the first African Americans enlisted in the Marine Corps at the Tubman Museum. Brigadier General Kelvin McElroy will be the featured speaker at the induction ceremony for 2 Montford Point Marines. Raymond Tubbs speaks with the son of one of those honorees.
Well, thanks for staying with us on this Veterans Day. The National Montford Point Marine Association works to preserve the legacy through community education and locating its Marine members. Since 2012, each Montford Point Marine that's located is recognized with a Congressional Gold Medal. And joining us is the son of one of those Marines that was located. Bradford Dalton is the son of Richard Lee Dalton. He was a World War II veteran, and first, thank you for your service because you followed in your father's footsteps and went into the military. Talk a little bit about your service.
I wanted to become a Marine because I knew my father was a Marine. But when I went down to sign up, they were closed. And the Air Force guy came and said, well, we're open. So I went in the Air Force. So I went in there and signed up. And I stayed in a little bit over 24 years and 8 months. So I retired from the Air Force.
Now you're telling me your father passed away back in 2004, and you knew he'd served, and you knew he was in the Marines, and found out that he was a Montford Point Marine, but I guess it took a while to learn the significance of that. This was the first group. It was an African-American regiment, even before the armed services were later integrated under Truman. But back during World War II, was trained and served together and served with distinction. And so talk a little bit about the history of the Montford Point Marines and what makes them so special.
Well, I didn't know a lot about the Montford Point Marines until I started researching it. And I started researching because I wanted to know more about my father, how he was involved in it. And so I started researching, getting information. And I finally went to see one of my friends in Springfield, Vermont, Martin Cone, and I just told him that I was looking for some things about it. And that was it. And the next morning, he said, I stayed up all night researching the Montford, and he had sheets of paper and he said, I think this is your dad. And he printed out a picture, and I said, that is my dad. He said, yeah, I got all the information. He said, because he's like a historian, he likes to, but he got the information. That's what got me involved in what the Montford Point Marines were all about. And I said, I need to know more about this. So I just started doing a little research, telling my siblings that that's what I was going to be doing. So.
Yeah, and people that know folks or knew folks from that generation, they don't always talk a lot about their service or their accomplishments or what they did during wars or during their military service. And so I guess you had a lot of sleuth work to find out and a lot of surprises. You told me you knew he was in the Montford Point Marines, but that was they just kind of went off and had reunion parties every few years.
That's
but
right.
It's been a voyage of discovery for you on just what that meant.
Well, he paved the way for me. He really did. He paved the way for me, and just knowing that he was a Montford Point Marine and what they were all about. Because before I started researching, I knew nothing about the Montford Point Marines. I just didn't know. And once I started digging, I said, hey, my dad was kind of great. He was a great dad, right. And I didn't even know it, so.
You just knew him as dad. You didn't know the history there. And so you've got a brother that's flying in for today's ceremony at the Tubman, and they will be doing a plaque presentation and with the gold medal as well.
That's correct. I've got 2 siblings, sisters older than me, but they're not in good health right now, and but so him and his wife is coming in, and I've got my daughters coming down today.
Now, as you've been researching, you discovered too that your father actually had a leadership position within the Montford Point Marines. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, when my friend, he was researching, he said, your dad was a national president of Montford. I said, I don't know anything about that. And he said, yes. And he pulled out the paper where it said, at one of the conventions, he said, this is your dad. And they said that Montford Point Marines, national president in 1968. And that was the same year that I enlisted in the service.
Okay.
And it just went on, and I said, there's a lot of things I don't know about my dad. And I said, I need to find more. So that's why I started talking to Mr. Price from.
Well, talk to us more about what you've discovered about your dad and the Montford Point Marines in your research.
Well, it was a black unit in 1942, and they were the first black unit in any service.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of, but they didn't really go anywhere or do too much because didn't nobody trust them. They just made a unit out of them until they put them in action and that type of thing, and then all of a sudden they said, boy, these guys can really, they can do their job. They can do the job. So I was kind of proud about that. I said, goodness gracious, and not knowing, I was kind of, hey, my dad never did say anything. My mom never said anything, but I was proud of him.
And that laid the groundwork. In 1948, President Truman signed an executive order that then desegregated the entire armed services, of course, years before the Civil Rights Movement. And but it was because partly of the actions and the service of the Montford Point Marines that action took place. And we've actually got a special on that's airing on 13 Plus today too, called Faces of Freedom, that talks about the desegregation of the armed services. But all of that was put into place because of the service of the Montford Point Marines.
That's correct. And those are some brave people, and they, when they signed up, they were going to give their life because that's what they wanted to do. And there's a lot of great men.
What are your final thoughts on the ceremony today and what it means?
I'm just so proud to be a son or be Richard L. Dalton, because he was a great man. I already knew he was a great man because the way we grew up, I followed in his footsteps and everything. But I just didn't realize how much he was an inspiration for the Montford Point Marines, and that's good, and I'm glad to know that and to pass it on to my siblings.
Well, enjoy the ceremony today. It's a great day, I know, for you and your family.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for joining us today. And on this Veterans Day, the entire community is invited out to the induction ceremony of two newly located Montford Point Marines. It happens at 2 o'clock at the Tubman Museum. It's over on Cherry Street in Macon. The National Montford Point Marine Association, chapter number 35 out of Warner Robins, will award those Congressional Gold Medals posthumously to the family members of the Montford Point Marines, Richard Lee Dalton and Charles E. Lewis.
Historians say as of today, the more than 20,000 Montford Point Marines enlisted, only 5,000 have been located.